Welcome to part 1 of my new painting challenge where I'm going to paint 2 paintings at the same time, but one is going to be an oil painting and one is going to be a acrylic painting. So I just finished a challenge where I painted 2 oil paintings at the same time, and it was a lot of fun. I was able to make them look similar but also different at the same time, and I thought it would be a fun idea and it would challenge myself to do a same kind of thing but have oil painting on one side, which is the left side, and acrylic on the right side. So right now I'm just going through and doing some little outlines and doodles on each of the paintings. I usually use a Sharpie for the acrylic ones. I find it's just more crisp with the lines, but for the oil, I'm just doing it with a paintbrush. And I learned from my first few oil paintings that for this first layer of doodles, I want to do it light, and I'll go and do lining after. If I use the lines of the oil paint too thick, I find the paint really blends, especially when I'm doing lighter colors. So I'm just doing it thin for the oil side. And for the acrylic, I kind of want a bunch of the doodles to all kind of connect to each other. So I'm starting at the center of the painting and just having them all kind of be intertwined and have little lines connecting each one and doodles that connect them. So I'm starting with some color, and I thought burgundy would look good. So I'm going to do a good amount of like a dark burgundy and dark red in this one. I'll probably do some dark blues as well. And I'll probably also do some light red and light blue to layer on top of it, but that'll come much later in the painting. So I'm just doing this. I'm gonna fill in more color in that shape in the top left of the oil painting. But now I'm going in with this kind of brown gold color for the acrylic painting, and just doing a few spots. One thing that's challenging is the oil paints I can leave out for a while and there's no issues because they take so long to dry. But the acrylic paints, even in the time that I'm painting, they start to dry. So I have to make sure I'm mixing only small amounts just so I don't waste paint. So I'm going in with some dark blue, and I mixed a turquoise for the acrylic one. I thought that would look good with the gold brown color. I want to make sure with both paintings that I'm going through and adding more doodles in the blank spaces before I start painting any background colors. I find that's where I make the paintings that I'm really happy with, when there's a lot of more planned out in the sense of doing the outline first instead of just doing textures and layers after. I will end up doing textures and layers after for both paintings. I always do that, but I want to make sure there's enough of the large details in the doodles beforehand and kind of work the painting, the background paintings around those. So I'm just doing some fun shapes in this acrylic one, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to do the kind of like triangle with a bunch of things kind of dropping things into the train car. And then I'm doing like a little meteor, and I'm gonna make it look like kind of the earth with the colors. One of the main things that I'm interested in for this painting challenge is how different they will look. I really want to try to give the same amount of detail in each one. I find that with acrylic paintings, it's a little bit easier to do more crisp, small details, but I want to challenge myself to do that with the oil as well. So it'll be cool to see how they look when they're beside each other. I want to make sure that I'm doing kind of the same process and not really theme, but kind of the style of painting for both of them. And it'll be interesting to see how they look. Another thing that is a huge difference between oil and acrylic is the acrylic paint I have to go over a few times depending on the color. And with the oil paints, I usually only just go over it once. Sometimes some colors don't need a second coat at all. So it'll be kind of cool to see how that impacts how it looks at the end. Especially with the acrylic paint, I'm making sure that when I blend a color, that I'm doing that color throughout the painting in a bunch of different spots. I always want to make sure that I use a color more than once. I find it looks funny if you use a blended color only once in the painting. So same with the oil painting. Sometimes I blend a color and there's not much of it, so I have to add small little aspects of it throughout it. I always do that and want to make sure I spread it out so it's in different parts of the painting. I find it just looks a lot more complete that way. I really like how it's looking so far. I like how both of them have the similar kind of theme, but you can tell the difference between the acrylic and the oil painting. Even at this point, you can see that the details and lines of the acrylic painting and just how the paint covers and how it looks is a lot more crisp than the oil painting, but the oil paint really covers the canvas a lot nicer, in my opinion. So it'll be really cool to see how these paintings look beside each other. Obviously, they're not identical, and I want to make sure they're different enough, but I do want to use a few of the same aspects or doodles in both just to see how they look compared to each other. One thing I always notice at this point is usually I have a mixed color and I'll do a few different spots that I know I want that color. And especially at the beginning, you'll see it looks like there's a lot of blue or a lot of one color. And then you add a few other ones and then you realize, oh, maybe you didn't even have enough blue. So it's finding that balance and just making sure right now that enough of the blank space is filled up with these little outlines and doodles, so when the end of the painting comes, it's detailed and has layers to it. Something I find important when I'm doing a painting where I want a lot of details and interesting layers in it is every kind of half an hour when I'm working on it, I take a step back and look at the blank spaces and how different shapes are looking beside each other. And sometimes I can see an area where I can add a lot more detail, or I can blend two shapes together to make a face or something like that. So it's important to do that, take a step back, and for the oil painting I get a little bit of black paint and kind of just like do some sketching. And for the acrylic one I use the Sharpie. I just want to make sure that in both of these paintings there's not a section where it's just one color, and in order to create more of those intricate details, I have to just do little kind of lines or different textures on top of it. I do like doing a lot of textures and lines, but if there's too much, I find the doodles lose a lot when you look at the painting and they kind of get washed away. So it's going to be, for this next kind of few hours of working on this painting, a lot of doing sketches and continuing to do that and not just filling in super large areas of one color. I also want to make sure that I'm using a lot of different colors. So this first bit, like I mentioned before, I'm only doing a few, and that's when I have it blended, or for acrylic, especially if it's going to dry, if I have the paint out, I do some sections in it. But I want to make sure that there's at least 10 colors in each painting. I'm going to have some different ones, so there's a lot more, a lighter brown and a darker brown that's going to be in the oil painting. And I want to do some reds and pinks for the acrylic one. But I just want to make sure that both these paintings achieve the goal of being able to be looked at for a long time, and you see new details and see different ways that the painting looks interesting. So this is fun. The one thing that does take a little bit of an adjustment is when I'm painting with one style, I have a set of brushes for each one. So it takes a little bit longer to switch in between the two paints. And I want to make sure I'm not focusing on one painting for too long. So I'm going to end this part right here. Thank you for watching part 1, and I'll be posting the next part soon.